And today I have a special guest with me, a good friend of the family's, and I'm very excited to have her on. I'm honored to have her on, to be honest with you. So, Rachel, could you introduce yourself to the audience, and we'll go from there.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Aaron. It's always a joy to be with you. I was thinking of a couple things that we have in common. And before I share those, I'll just say I'm Rachel Wojo, often known as Rachel Wojo. Actually, you know me as Rachel Wojnarowski, right?
Right?
Because
Yep.
we live in the same community and have for many, many years, over a decade for sure.
Right.
And so I was thinking that one of the things you and I have in common is that we both have an awesome spouse, right? I love your wife, and of course
Right.
I love my husband. So
Right.
that's one of the things. And then the other thing I thought about is that both of us have moms who are in heaven.
Absolutely.
And then both of us like sports, although you might like them a little bit more than me.
A little bit. just a tad. Absolutely. No, you're right. And, but I've had the benefit, and I'm sure you have too, of, though my mom is in heaven, there's been a lot of people that stood in the gap over the years. And so I have a lot of earthly moms, I guess you'd say, but yeah, the reunion will be sweet one day.
Sure will.
Yeah.
Sure will. I can't wait for that. So yeah, we live in the same community, and we both have kiddos around the same age, busy lives with trying to rear our families for the Lord and stay active in church and fight COVID and whatever else comes our way.
That's right. Yeah. And you actually used to teach piano to ours. So remember that? That's a throwback, isn't it?
Short stint, but that was, yep, that's true. That's awesome.
Yeah, I stumbled on one of those videos the other day from the recital, and I think it was Weaver or one of those schools, and even Austin was up there playing the piano. So
that is cool.
Yeah. So what I wanted to do, I guess I'll start off by telling everybody. Well, first of all, so you're a wife, you're a mom, you're an author, speaker, and a freelance writer. So I stole that all off your website. That's all right? Yeah.
Yep, I do all of those things. That is true. And all the other hats that moms wear and all the other hats that, wives wear, just like everyday people,
Yeah. That's a lot of plates to keep spinning at one time. It's amazing. But so I'll go back a little bit in history. Gosh, 10 years ago? I don't remember how long ago it was, but I remember you were just getting started you kind of had felt that calling to go into maybe write a book, or at least starting a website and a blog. And so we talked, because mine had been kind of going for a few years and had a little bit more down the path, I guess. And so you called, and, we're asking a lot of questions. And I remember explaining it's for anybody that has a blog or doesn't have a blog, it's a labor of love. It's not something you do. I guess you could do it casually, but if you have bigger dreams and visions, it's a lot of work. It's a full-time job. It can be. And sometimes the reward is just not there. You just don't see it. And so I remember telling you that and saying, and I didn't want to discourage you. And I just remember saying, you really got to like the stats. And I had Kurt Harding on a couple episodes ago, and we talked about storytelling and stat watching and all those things. And then, so I guess about 3 weeks ago, I put mine on the shelf for a while. Since then, you have just gone so big with yours, and you wrote your books and devotionals, and you really have invested. It's amazing what you've created. And I hate to call it a brand, because I know you personally, but your brand, all that you've worked on, that hard work is really, really amazing to see. And so much so that when I got mine, took it out and took all the dust off of it a few weeks ago, I called you and said, Rachel, how do I do this? And where do I find this? And what do you use for this? And you were very generous in helping me along with that. So congratulations on all your success. It's amazing.
Well, I appreciate that. I don't consider it very much of my own success, because, as you know, I tell our family story and my story for the purpose of telling a much bigger story, and that is God's story. And so when that's what's in your heart and it's burning inside of you to get at that out, then you just keep following those small steps of obedience, whatever they are. But I will say, and you know me well enough to know this, that I am a very, very much a business person, and I take numbers seriously. I take dollars seriously, and no one wants to work for free, right?
Right.
None of us can afford to do that. So you're right in that it takes, a lot. Either way, it takes a lot to be able to just keep going with everything. And so I would say that I appreciate your graciousness, but anyone who works hard and sticks at it and is really intentional can follow through and have a great website and be able to, the opportunities that are available are bigger and better than ever. I think I told you that 2 weeks ago. It's like, if you want, to get your message out, there are so many avenues that you can do that, and so many ways and opportunities to virtually be able to get your information out there. And so I just encourage people to be creative and follow through with those small steps, whatever they are. For me, it was a blogspot blog back in the day.
Yeah, I remember. And I remember talking to you about WordPress and how it was going to be a move, but that was the move to make at the time. And then,
Yep.
as time's gone on, when I talked to you last time, you brought up some other sites that have since popped up and are growing. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's amazing. I think the best advice you gave me was, for those, and I doubt a lot of people are tuning in for this, but anybody that is, it's great information. And that was, and I mean the blog talk, they're tuning in to hear from you, but I think the best information you gave me was, you want your blog to kind of work for itself overnight. You want to get it to set up to where, if that's your goal, and it was never
Right.
my goal to make a ton of money off of it. It was more, and I think it goes with what you said, and a lot of what Kurt said. When you write from the heart, when you write from or a story that you feel like God has inspired you to put out there, it'll find its way to where it needs to go. And it's
Yep.
amazing. And I know you've seen this, experienced it. It's opened platforms for you. It's opened doors for you. And so just to kind of put a bow on that part of it, that was great advice that you gave me, was if that's why you're doing it, if that's what you're working for, then set it up so it's running itself, and it will get there, but there's a lot of labor of love before it doesn't happen overnight. That's for sure.
No, and I often encourage people, I think it's faster. I think you can grow a website much faster than what I did, by all means, and what I have. I think you can grow it faster. I do think that slow growth is best, and everybody kind of waits for that viral moment. Like they think that's going to be the epiphany, and you've had viral moments, like they are just that. They last that long and then they're gone. And then, there's not a whole lot of wave afterwards.
Right.
So that slow, steady growth is much more favorable in your, outlook, to just be willing to put the consistent work in so that you can get consistent results.
Yeah. And you've just done a fantastic job. And I don't want to move off of that too quick, but I believe that you have such an inspiring and strong story to tell. And you just mentioned it a minute ago with your family. And so anybody that has, and I'll put all the links in the blog post and, all those places so they can find it. They can find you, your site. If they have questions, I'm sure you'll be, gracious like you were with me to talk through maybe all those things, because you've done a great job with it, and you can probably share that. But if you don't mind, do you mind if we transition to your family? Because I really think that's what people would want to tune in for and hear the most, is just about your incredible family and how that has led to really your ministry.
Sure. I'm always excited to talk about my family. And it seems like that's what I talk and do the most. So,
Yep.
Matt and I have been married for 20 years this year. We're celebrating our 20th. And we were not picked the most likely to succeed, because when we met each other, both of us already had a child from a previous marriage, and we also had both been through divorce. So our scenario was not one that maybe, like I said, would be picked the most likely to succeed. And the divorce rate for second marriages is over 50%, to maybe even in the 70s now. So God, I literally believe that God put us together, and I could not believe that, anymore. And just initially the way that we met and how God weaved our hearts together immediately. I do not recommend first love, first love at first sight, or get married within a week, or any of that. But I will say that our engagement was short, and we just knew, we knew, and we were thankfully strong enough in the Lord to have his confidence in his plan as well. So the combination of those two things joined us together, and God gave us a beautiful redemptive family with our sweet girls. So we have Tiffany and Taylor, and Tiffany was 9 years old when I met her at the time. Goodness, I look back over that and just shake my head. All the time that has passed, and how much opportunity God gave me. I was such a young mom. I only had Taylor, and I had no idea what it was like to have a 9-year-old. And there are so many mistakes that I made being a stepmom. But I really believe that we must have done something right along the way, because as you know, in the last year, we've been super blessed to have my Tiffany and her husband, Zach, to move into the home beside of us.
Oh, so, I didn't know that. That's great.
Oh, yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. So when we moved into our new house and we chose to build, they came to us like the next week, and they were like, we want to build too, right beside you.
That's awesome.
So that was the best part of the whole deal, is having them so close by.
Yeah.
And that's been a super fun privilege. So I just want to share that part with you, because, all the mistakes we make as parents, and we feel guilty about them, and we just, I don't know, sometimes I beat myself up as a parent, just thinking, oh my goodness, what if I don't make the right choice, or what if I've made the wrong choice, and all of the typical worrying I think that parents do. But the Lord blesses anyway. Like when we stay true to him, he blesses it. He sees our efforts and blesses it. And so I'm really thankful to have Tiffany and Zach living beside us and enjoying this stage of life with them. And then we, after we were married, so we had Tiffany at age 9, and she's now 29. And we had Taylor she was just 4 years old when we got married. And we have had 5 children together over the 20 years. So fast forward 20 years, the long fast forward, we have Michael, who just graduated last year. Justine is a junior, and Samuel is a sophomore. And we have Tara in the 6th grade and Tessa in 4th grade.
Yeah.
So quite the span of kiddos there. What I have sort of left out in the midst of all of that story, and in the midst of all the blessings of having children in these 20 years, is that our Taylor at age 4 was diagnosed with a rare metabolic disorder called MPS. And so most of the 20 years that we have been married have not been filled with all joy, because we've walked a very terrible neurologically degenerative disease with her that eventually, caused her to lose her life. Heaven's gain for sure, but she lost her life, and she has been gone almost 2 years. It has been, it will be January 2nd, 2021. It will be 2 years. So we're kind of at that 1 year, 3/4 mark right now.
Wow.
And it's been very, very strange since she passed away. So much of life has changed, but sometimes I think we all sit around looking at each other like, who are we and how did we get here, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I know that you know what that's like when you lose a loved one, and just so much life passes you by without being able to figure things out and place yourself, that it can get really strange at times, trying to figure out, just that, who you are, because so much of who I was for many years was, tied up in being a special needs mom and caring for those day-to-day moments of just making sure we had, supplies, and making sure that we had caregivers when we needed them, and making sure that, everyone was physically cared for.
Yeah.
not just Taylor, but all of the kids. And so it can be really easy to get consumed by all of that and forget who you are as a person, who you are, who God made you to be, and what is inside of your spirit.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of where, in a nutshell,
Yeah.
20 years,
Yeah.
I can give our story. I don't know what else I could say about any of that to just sort of give you the summary.
No, that was great. And I think anybody that knows you, is familiar with your story because you've been very public and open and shared that. And again, giving God the glory through it all, even the hard that you've been through. So I think anybody that knows you knows, but those that don't know you, I wanted them to know that as well. So thank you for sharing it. Because, a lot of people I think could become consumed and not share that story, maybe be silent about it and just kind of go through it on their own. And you all have been very public, but you've also been very gracious with that, in that you helped, and we used to help you every year with the foundation when they would all get together. And can you talk a little bit about that? Because that was really special. And are you still involved, or have you just kind of, and I think it's completely acceptable for you to say, that you stepped away from it, but are you still involved? And can you tell everybody about it a little bit?
So one of the things that drew us immediately to in the MPS world, Taylor's disease, was that there were other families who felt just as isolated and lonely as we did in receiving this rare diagnosis. And back in the day, again, I'm saying back in the day, but we didn't have Facebook groups. No. We didn't have, this is literally what we did. Okay. There was an MPS forum. So it was like the old style bulletin board. You logged in, you posted a question about your child's, symptoms or whatever you're trying to work on, or a doctor's recommendation or whatever it was. You posted that and you left the board and you hoped and prayed that somebody would read it in the next week, because that's how those kind of bulletin boards worked. Yeah. It was this instantaneous, sort of thing. So, back then, I think one of the reasons why God brought us to the community was so that we could emphasize real community and face-to-face time together, and I had no idea what generationally would happen now compared to then, but the importance of meeting together and being together in community was even bigger. It was an even bigger concept than what I thought it to be at the time. All I was trying to do is just get some families together who needed to be connected with one another,
Yeah.
And so that venture of having MPS families gather together one time every year in the summer for the Ohio MPS gathering grew and grew and grew. The largest year we had about 200. That was, I think, 3-4 years ago. After that, the numbers did start to go down a little bit, only because I think people were catching on that, hey, this is such a cool thing. Why don't we have our own, closer to us? And so at one point we had people coming from Tennessee, from Kentucky, from, all of these, New York, all of these states that were quite a bit further out. And they realized, hey, we can have our own group right here and, be a little closer knit. So a lot more groups have started and a lot more communities have begun to have their gatherings every year. So that's been a cool thing to see. Since Taylor passed away, we did host the MPS gathering in 2019. This summer was the saddest ever for me because for the first time in about 18 years, we could not host the gathering because of COVID.
Right.
So it was very discouraging, but we do hope that maybe by the time 2021 comes around in the summer, we'll be ready to be socially distanced if we need to, but still go ahead and gather as an MPS family. So yeah, that's been a huge way that God has used the MPS community to just unite our hearts together and to be able to appreciate and encourage one another.
Mm-hmm. And all the families were so, there's so much joy, in those events. And if I remember right, didn't you have themes Like, wasn't
We
it Cowboys?
did, yeah, we always have a party theme. Yep,
Right.
you guys have a theme. So I'm trying to remember, I think one of the ones that I remember you being at, we had a carnival theme maybe.
Yeah.
And then one year I think we had a purple theme.
Yep.
We
Yep.
also, I think I remember that year the Chick-fil-A cow came for us too.
Yeah. Yeah. It was great, and it was fun, and the families were so genuine and sincere. And we would do check-in, and like you said, they'd be coming from all over the place. And so
Yeah.
certainly, I imagine if the numbers dropped, it was probably like, oh no. But then you find out it dropped because you spawned a bunch of new groups in other
Yes.
places, so it actually grew,
Right.
something much larger. And they were great. It was such a fun time for us, and we always look forward to it, and we look forward to seeing the same faces and families every year. It was really special. So, and I'll make sure don't let me forget, because I will. Before we get off, let's get links for that too, if you have one, or if there's somewhere people can find more information about any charity or anything like that to do with MPS. But Taylor was beautiful. The way you as a family cared for her was beautiful, and it was a joy to know her. And our hearts grieved with you, and still do. And but you all are pretty amazing. And one thing you glossed over that everybody needs to know too is your husband was in like medical school. While all this is going on, he's working and going to school. I mean, you all had a lot going on at one time, and it's incredible that as you said, even your marriage and maintaining a family and someone with special needs, there's a lot happening in that house at one time. And so to be where you are today and still have all the joy and all those things, it's amazing. It really is amazing. And I hope people hear that, because I know you didn't say it. I'll say it on your behalf, because I'd love people to know that about you all. But so when it comes to your writing, because I think, again, through all of those things, you took that and you turned it into a ministry, and you've written books. I have to tell them the story. Just a few weeks ago, my daughter came downstairs and said, "Hey, Miss Rachel actually wrote a book." And I said, "Yeah, I know." And she said, "One More Step. I read that. I didn't know that was Miss Rachel." I said, "Yeah, so it has grown." And can you talk about your book, your first book? Do you have multiple books now?
So I've worked on a lot of different collaborations and books, so many. I at one point tried to compile a list for the last decade, and it's about 53 publications.
Wow.
So I would never dream that that's what God would do. I have several traditionally published books, and the main one that I think people recognize was released in 2015, called One More Step, Finding Strength When You Feel Like Giving Up. And that book is really my heart book. Like, if I could sit down with someone over coffee and just share my heart with you, that would be what I would share with you. It's all the many lessons I learned over a decade of dealing with, my daughter's terminal disease, the challenges that we had as a family. And what's interesting, Aaron, is when I started to write that book, I never set out to tell our family story. I never even realized as I was writing, I would get to a principle that I was trying to emphasize. And it just seemed like the best way to share that principle was to share how it had worked out in our own lives. And so I wound up with this book full of illustrations from my own life and heart, never intending for our testimony to sort of be the book and then the principles to be shared from our testimony. But that's what happened. And the publisher loved it, and they were grateful for it. And just it turned out to be a beautiful, beautiful thing. I had the opportunity to be on Focus on the Family and share. That was just an incredible opportunity. I've had so many opportunities I would never have dreamed of to be on, various television events and various radio shows and broadcasts. If you picked someone, here's the thing, and my husband would joke, because if I say here's the thing, it means it's a serious issue. Okay. That's like my preface phrase.
Good to know.
But I mean it when I say, like, I am one of 9 kids who grew up in a little tiny town in the middle of West Virginia. Okay. I love the state of West Virginia with all my heart, but it is not known for turning out authors, just in case you ever wondered.
Sure.
The literacy rate is very, very high there. And, I have 5 sisters and 3 brothers. I'm right in the middle. If you know the story of Gideon in the Bible, where he says, all the excuses of why he's not called by God, I would say I have that same list of excuses. It's like, okay, I'm the middle of my tribe. I'm not important. I don't have an education, all of those things. I mean, not that caliber of education that you would expect. And yet God just, puts it all together. He outlines every step and puts one in front of the other and then guides you through it. And so that is how One More Step came to be in existence. It's a book that I feel like is a real classic and can still be picked up and enjoyed today, even 5 years later, which I think is starting to be a little odd because so many books are written on relevant topics that are temporary and seem like they're good for about a year and then they fade, So I love that it's still a book that I feel comfortable talking to people about and encouraging people to use. And then I have many self-published books that I have done because God's Word is my absolute foundation. It is my absolute go-to. It is what, when people say, how have you lived through watching your child suffer? How have you lived through watching your child die? Then I would just tell you the only way that I can see people being able to handle those things is when they have a relationship with Jesus and they know him very personally. And they know him so personally that they feel his presence when he is in the room. When Taylor passed away, I have never experienced God's presence like that before. Yeah. And, I would just say that without that foundation and without being in God's Word every day and purposefully growing my relationship with him, I would not have had that experience. I know the Lord like I do. And so I encourage people to get into God's Word. If you, especially, during COVID, we are not getting as many opportunities to digest, being in, a lot of people are still not in church, they're having to watch online. Just things are different. And so I just encourage you to foster your relationship with the Lord by being intentional about spending time with him every day. And so I have those Bible reading plans that I've been publishing for many years. I just took a slew of them off. So in the last few months, I've produced 4, and they are available as digital downloads. But I just took a slew of them. They're unpublished, off the market, and we'll be releasing some new ones for Amazon to host for me here soon. But those have been a huge blessing. And then I have also a mom devotional that I worked with Dayspring. It's a really pretty book and perfect for keeping in the van door, perfect for, like I always tell people, truthfully, this is like a bathroom book. Okay, you put it on the back of the toilet when you have 60 seconds. That's when you read it, and then you move on, and you got your encouragement on the go. So,
if it, Matt reads it too, because I will. I know I will. If it's
yeah, he's funny. This is what he does. He'll open it up and he'll say, "You wrote the first one, didn't you?" Because I can tell by the tone of it, it's yours.
Well, we love Matt too. We should have had him on for a minute, but that there's so many resources that you have, and I thought about that before we even got on, and I think you mentioned it too. The times we're in, One More Step is exactly the book right now. Especially for moms and dads, I think, and I've mentioned this on other podcasts too. I'm so worried about where our kids are going to be after all this. We're all adults and we're having a hard time just getting our head around it and getting used to not having schedules and things getting canceled. Our poor kids are not developed yet enough you know, some of them will, because some of them just have that grit or that tough. And if they don't, it's not their fault. That's what I'm worried about. Is I'm so worried about how do they put one foot in front of the other? How do they take one more step when they're frustrated with school, when they're frustrated with things that they used to be able to do, they can't do now, and all that, you know, I'm so worried about them. So I think your book would be great for such a time as this. And then also the prayer, all the things you mentioned, those are all fantastic resources right now. Absolutely.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. You know, to piggyback on what you said, I think that as parents, this is the time for us to step up and lead by example more than ever.
Yeah.
Because all of the things that we say, our kids may or may not pick up on,
Right.
but they are going to be watching what we do.
Right.
They're going to be responding as we respond. And so it's more important than ever for your kids to see you reading your Bible. It is more, and less time on your phone, you know,
Right.
and more important than ever for them to be making sure, you know, my mother-in-law, she's like, now you guys are having church every Sunday, right? You know,
Yeah.
I'm like, we're having church, all right. You know,
Yeah.
I had to joke, like, for a while I was having the kids, they had jobs as church people. So we had a greeter.
Oh, nice.
For when we walked into the game room to, you know, be a part of our weekly TV. I say TV, but you know, it's Rock City. It's where you go. It's Rock City Online.
Yeah.
So we're doing online church, and we had greeters, and it didn't last very long. Like, I'm not so sure that any of my kids would be able to work in the nursery. I'm just putting it out there.
Did you serve communion?
There we go.
If there were greeters, you could have done that. Take an offering.
Yeah, something. They're going to be serving some other way. We'll put it that way. But I mean, it is so important to be making sure that we prioritize our faith. Yep. Because that's what they're seeing lived out.
Yeah. Well, again, and I could really literally go for an hour easily and keep talking. I know you've got that busy family and things that are gracious enough to carve out some time for me today. And so before we get off with the links and all those things that we have, before we get off of here, so what's next? That's my last question. What's next for you? Because I know there's always, I think you mentioned Amazon, a couple other things. Is that the next thing, or have you got dreams and visions for something else?
Well, I always have 3 or 4 projects at a time that I'm excited about. Like you, I like to brainstorm. I like to have new things that I'm doing, fresh things. And so one of the big things that I have been working on recently is that I joined forces with Carol Kent Ministries, who is in charge of the Speak Up Conference, which is one of the leading premier conferences for speakers and writers for the last 2 decades, really. Think about 15 years. And so I have teamed up with her, and I am now the Speak Up Growth Groups Director. Wow. So we have launched our first season. Our first season is sort of a trial season for October, November, and December. And we have 10 groups of speakers and writers. I have written a curriculum for them. They will have monthly mastermind meetings where they walk through the curriculum with a guide, as well as we have 2 levels. So one is the Lean In group, and that is a peer-to-peer mastermind group. And the second level is a Learn On group, and it is an intensive coaching group. So they do receive 20 minutes of group coaching every month on top of everything else that we're providing to them, as well as some individual email coaching. So it's a super opportunity. I just remember, you know, Aaron, like back in the day when I first talked to you, I was so hungry for someone to help me. And I remember feeling really lonely in that journey to get to traditional publishing. It was a very lonely journey because I just felt like no one really knew what to tell me. There were a lot of things that I did that worked, and a lot of things I did that did not work at all. And so if I had just had a mentor, someone who could have helped guide me along those early paths, you know, someone who had known the right questions to ask me, that would have been huge for me. And there were some people, I don't want to say there was no one, but it was just not as hand-holding as what it maybe could have been,
Yeah.
and what I would have appreciated. And so I want to be that for someone else. I want to be able to say, you know what, you can do this. God gave you this message. You need to find the right channel, and this is how we find the right channel for you, you know, and walk them through the steps. So I'm so excited about what Speak Up Growth Groups is going to do over the next 3 months, and then especially the next 6 months after that, for the first half of 2021. And Carol Kent is such, I mean, I'm telling you, she is so wise, and she has so much to offer in the way of wisdom with speaking and writing. And not only that, but I feel like, Aaron, that the Bible tells us very clearly to give honor to whom honor is due.
100%.
And I believe, you know, Carol is in her 70s.
Wow.
And I absolutely love coming alongside her and being able to be the tech part of helping her. And she's like the prayer warrior, you know, and it's just such a cool relationship. And I'm really excited to see what God does through that. So I appreciate you asking about that. From a more personal ministry perspective, I do have dreams of another traditionally published book. And so my hope is to be able to put that together and really be proactive about that. As you know, that's not a quick process. It takes a couple of years to really accomplish. And so it may be 2 years before I get that book out there, but that's my prayer, is that I really believe we walked through a very dark valley of suffering and of death. And I want people to know what it's like to walk that when Jesus is walking with you. Yeah. And so, and how to, I don't want to say come out on the other side, because we're not on the other side. You know, I think the other side is heaven. Mm-hmm. And so that's, you know, we'll experience something totally different there. But to be able to continue walking day by day and grow stronger in our faith and in our walk and in our ability to share, yeah, you know, and give hope to other people. I think there is a book stirring in me about all of that may seem very similar to the first one, but I think at one point I had titled that book The Next Mile, because, you know, one more step is just really taking it one step at a time. But at some point you do have to look a little beyond one step at a time. You do land at a point where you say, okay, I want to get to there. How do I do it? You know, and so I'm really excited to see where that goes.
Wow. Again, I'm just so amazed by all that you are able to do. And somehow it all happens. I'm amazed, because I've had that idea. I've had people ask me casually a few times mentioning writing a book. And I remember when I got downsized at one point, I got like a 6-month severance, and I was like, what am I going to do when I grow up? And I had time, and I had this vision of just taking my blog and turning it into a devotional or whatever. And here I am. I never did any of that. So, and I probably have a little bit more time than you do. I'm not have as many things going on as you do. So all that to say, that's a credit. And I told that story because you've made all those things happen. And anybody that's listening, if you don't know Rachel, I can actually testify that her faith is real. And you've probably heard that. If you've listened to this and missed out on that somehow, then I'll go ahead and say it again, that her faith is very real. Her family's faith is very real. Her and Matt are very, very real, and they share those. And she has taken what God has taken them through, and for our benefit, put that into digital downloads, to a book. And it sounds like there's going to be another one. It's an open invitation to come back on and tell me about one more mile when it's ready. And you're always welcome to come on. But I'm just thankful for our friendship, and that we've had the opportunity to watch you grow and your family literally grow. It's saying that my internet connection is unstable, so hopefully this is still going on. All right, before we go, because it looks like I'm losing it, links. Where can we find you? Give me all the links.
Sure. So everything can be found at RachelWojo.com. That one's pretty easy. If you're interested in finding out more about MPS or how you can support the MPS Society, that would be at MPSsociety.org. That's a great place to go for all of the information on the various types of MPS, as well as how you can help, and the different types of gatherings that we have, and all of the different ways that the MPS Society works. Interested in one more step, you can go to Amazon and type in one more step, or of course, RachelWojnarowski.com/shop. You can find all the books, all the resources that I talked about today.
Awesome. And I will have all those links in the blog post when I get it up onto my site, so they can click on them there too and find anything that they, in case they're driving and didn't have a chance to write any of that down. I'll have them all available, and I'm proud of you. I'm honored to know you and your family, and I'm just thankful that you were able to give us a little bit of time tonight. And I'm sure you've got a million other things to do. So thank you so much, Rachel. We love your family, and we're blessed to call you friend.
Thank you so much, Aaron. Give Heather my love, and you guys have a great night. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, Rachel. Bye-bye.
Bye.